Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. These are nice boots, aren't they? And historic. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I wore some boots a few weeks ago. They made fun of me with them. Remember that? You got to know what I'm talking about? These are nicer, so these are great. Well, first of all, thank you. I am so honored to be in the presence of these incredible heroes and men who have served our country in uniform and have kept us safe. One of them, of course, is my brother who was in the Army, the 7th Special Forces, but also these other men who are fantastic, and their testimony on behalf of us, I know, is powerful and uplifting, and I'm grateful to them. And it's great to be with all of you on the eve of this very important election, not just for Florida, but an important election for our country. What is this election about? Well, most elections are a choice between a political party and another political party.
That's enough. I have to tell everyone the truth. Marco Rubio
Jeez,
trying to steal my girlfriend. They met in New Hampshire, and she doesn't look at me in the same way anymore. I don't see any more love around.
That's all right. Hey, we don't beat up our hecklers in our event, so. Yeah, that's all right. I didn't even win New Hampshire. What are you talking about? All right. That's all right. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm still looking for the hidden camera. So anyway, most of these elections are a choice between candidates or a political party. But yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know. But this election is really a referendum. And I used to say this election is a referendum on America and on its identity, and it is. It's a referendum on our identity as a nation and as a people. I think we need to go one step further. I think this election is also a referendum on what it means to be a conservative, what it means to ultimately be a Republican, but more importantly than a Republican, a conservative in the 21st century. Conservatism... Conservatism was defined for me growing up. I grew up in an era where Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States. And by the way, it is not a coincidence that today you have multiple people in the Republican Party in their 40s and early 50s who are leading our country and leading our conservative movement. So for example, last night Governor Nikki Haley of South Carolina spoke here at a Lincoln Day dinner, a supporter of mine.
That's my governor.
She's fantastic. Susana Martinez in New Mexico, Bobby Jindal, who just finished 8 years of governor of Louisiana, Scott Walker in Wisconsin, Tim Scott of South Carolina, a great senator. The list goes on and on. Why are there so many young 40-something-year-old leaders in the conservative movement? Because who's the young up-and-coming Democrat liberal leader? Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Well, what do we all have in common? We grew up in the era of Reagan, where Ronald Reagan defined for us what it meant to be a conservative. When you said, what is a conservative, your mind said Ronald Reagan. And what was Ronald Reagan? Number one, Ronald Reagan was a leader who understood we had challenges in this country. He became president after Jimmy Carter. We had challenges in this country. But here's what he didn't do. He didn't go to Americans and say, I know you're upset at the direction of our country, and I'm going to make you even angrier, and I'm going to make you even more frustrated so that you'll vote for me. He didn't do that. He said, I know you're frustrated, and I know you're angry, and this is what's causing your anger and frustration, and here's how we're going to fix it, and when we fix it, America's going to be better than it's ever been. That was conservatism. And it defined a movement for a generation, and by the way, it worked. It helped to turn this country around. It's where the phrase "morning in America" again came from. It had an impact on an entire generation of Americans and an impact on the way the 20th century ended. I can say in full confidence that if Ronald Reagan had not won that election, the Soviet Union might still exist, and the world would be a very different place. That is the impact of one election in 1980 and what it had on this country. Well, now we're being asked to choose once again what it means to be a conservative. And I got to tell you, they're troubling trends. First of all, there are those who now believe conservatism has nothing to do with principle. It's with attitude. How angry can you get? How offensive can you be? How loud can you speak? That is not conservatism. Conservatism is a set of principles that have served this nation for 2 centuries. The principle of limited government, that we have a federal government, it's supposed to be small. It's not supposed to be involved in every aspect of our country. The principle that we have... The principle that we have a constitution that defines the powers of government and limits them. A constitution that guarantees that government exists not to decide our rights, but to protect them. The principles of a free economy and free enterprise. The idea that our economy works best when individuals have the economic freedom to go out and put their dreams into action. And the principles of a strong national defense. Not because we want war, but because we don't. Because history has taught us a painful lesson time and again. That weakness is an enemy of peace, and strength is an ally of peace. These principles, backed up by real and serious ideas, that is what conservatism means. And when our nation has been in trouble for over 2 centuries, it has largely been when it has abandoned those principles, as it has done over the last 7 years under the current president. And so at a time where now a lot of Americans are hurting, I understand they are. You know why I understand Americans are frustrated and hurting? Because these are members of my family. These are people who I know, not just things I'm reading about in a book or things I read about in a magazine article. I know I have people in my family who are firefighters and teachers and nurses, and they live paycheck to paycheck. They live paycheck to paycheck. If their car breaks down next week and it's not under warranty, they're in a lot of trouble. If their refrigerator stops working and they have to buy a new one, they got big problems. If their air conditioning goes under and they have to buy a new unit, I don't know how they're going to do it. They're in big trouble. They struggle every day, and they're not, I mean, these are professional jobs. They went to school to be a nurse. They went to the academy to be a firefighter. They went to school to be a teacher, and they are struggling. I know people are frustrated. I know people that are angry. They work really hard, they pay their taxes, they pay their mortgage on time, and they know someone else who's gaming the system. Someone else who's decided, I'm not going to pay my mortgage at all. Then the bank will work with me to lower the payments. But they make their payments every month, and the bank won't work with them. They know someone who's decided, I'm going to act like if I have social anxiety, so I can get long-term disability, even though I'm not disabled, and now they'll pay me to stay home, and I'll make some extra money under the table in cash. They're gaming the system. And they get frustrated, and they say enough is enough. And that's where leadership matters. That's where leadership steps forward and says, yes, you have a right to be angry about all of that, and we're going to fix it. What we see instead is a new brand of leadership, which is no leadership at all, which says to people, yes, get angry, get even angrier, and let's take it out on these people, and let's do this, and it's everybody else's fault that things are going wrong in our country. And the result is we are now a nation where people hate each other. We are now a nation where we are no longer apparently capable of debating serious public policy without immediately concluding that the person that disagrees with you is evil. This can't continue. Do we really want to live in a country where Americans hate each other? Where people are incapable of talking through an issue? That's why we have elections. Other countries fight civil wars over this stuff. Other countries put political leaders in jail when they lose elections for political retribution. In America, the worst thing that's supposed to happen if you're running for office is they run a nasty commercial about you. But we cannot. Look, I am as passionate about my beliefs as anybody else. There is no one running for president, no one running for any office in this country more passionate than I am about the things I believe in. But I, as a human being, as a Christian, as a fellow American, am capable of saying, just because you don't agree with me on the tax rate does not make you a bad person. Just because you don't agree with me on how big our military should be or where we should be engaged does not make you evil. There has to be room for us to be able to disagree on these things, to debate them. That's why we have elections. And if we continue on the road we are on right now, we are going to fracture at the seams. We are now seeing images on television we haven't seen in this country since the 1960s. Images that make us look like a third world country. And I'm not excusing these protesters. Some of these people are professional disruptors. I'm not talking about this gentleman today. I have no idea what that was. But I thought it was a practical joke. I didn't know. But some of these people are professional disruptors, okay? They get hired, they get paid to be rude and nasty. I'm not excusing that. But I'm also not excusing the fact that you have a leading contender for president telling people in his audience, go ahead and punch someone in the face, I'll pay your legal bills. That's not an excusable attitude, because let me tell you, that is wrong if our kids did it. That is disastrous if a president does it, because the words of a president have consequences. They have consequences. They have consequences. We got to get rid of this idea that just because you're polite, it makes you politically correct. You know, political correctness is a term that gets thrown around very loosely these days. I agree. Listen, truth has to be spoken. You have to be willing to speak truth. But I believe you can speak truth in a dignified manner. I believe that is critical when it comes to being president of the United States, because your words have consequences. When you're a candidate, your words have consequences. The responsibility of the presidency is extraordinary. You do not have the luxury of just saying anything you want or anything that comes to mind. Whether that's true in society, that is most important. That is most of all true on a position of that importance. And so I'm here to tell you I'm running for president because while I know we have real challenges, I believe we can solve every single one of them. We have to do it. It won't happen on its own. We've waited too long to do it, but we can do it. We absolutely can. Americans have proven for over 2 centuries that we can do anything. For over 2 centuries, Americans have proven that no challenge is too big for us. We put a man on the moon. We've liberated nations. We've won 2 world wars. We've cured diseases. We invented the internet. Not Al Gore, but America invented the internet. Okay? We can do anything. There's nothing we can't do if we set our mind to it. But we have to do it now, because we're running out of time. And that's why I'm here to ask you for your vote. When I'm president of the United States, we will return to follow the Constitution. The Constitution cannot mean whatever you want it to mean. If the Constitution means whatever you want it to mean, it means nothing at all. It means nothing. If the Constitution means whatever the people in charge at that moment think it should mean, it's a meaningless document. You become a nation of men instead of a nation of laws. The Constitution means what it originally meant. And if you want to change the Constitution, you have to go get it amended. Through the amended process on Article 5. There's some amendments I would love to see. I'd love to see term limits on Congress in the Constitution. But you can't have a president that says, my ideas are so good, I am so wise, that you know what? I'm going to ignore the Constitution. My ideas supersede the Constitution. And that's what we have now. We have a president that ignores the First Amendment, or at least wants to. He believes it no longer protects the right to live out the teachings of your faith. When I'm president, we will respect the First Amendment. We will follow it. And that means people will have a constitutional right to say nasty things about me. And you will have the constitutional right to live out the teachings of your faith in every aspect of your life and of your business. We're going to respect the Second Amendment. A Second Amendment that says that you have a constitutional God-given right to protect yourself and protect your families from killers, from terrorists, from whatever may threaten you. We're going to respect the 10th Amendment that says that government power resides largely in the states. And the reason why it should reside largely in the states... And the reason why it should reside largely in the states is because the states are closer to you than the federal government is. If you have a problem with a state law, you know, legislators. I see Kerry Baker's here, who's a great state legislator. I thought I saw Dennis Baxley here. Where's Dennis? He's a great friend of mine and great state legislator. Is Hugh Gibson here?
Right here.
Hugh Gibson, my good friend. We served together. Trust me, people found us. They didn't like something that was going on. We heard from them. Now go try find a bureaucrat at the Department of Education. Go and try to find someone at any federal division. They're so far removed. The federal government was never supposed to be this big. It was never supposed to be this involved. When I'm president, we're going to follow the 10th Amendment. We're going to return power to states. And I'm going to prove it. On my first day in office, I'm going to prove it. Because on my first day in office, I am going to repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. The second thing is we need to get away from this idea that people always ask, when you're president, how are you going to create jobs? Because I love when I hear a politician say, oh, I created 3 million jobs when I was the governor. And I said, really? You grew government by 3 million employees? And they're like, no, you know, private sector jobs. So you have nothing to do with it, really. The private sector creates jobs. If you live in the villages, it means you were probably pretty successful in business, okay? And so you know that you didn't wait, or even if you were an employee somewhere and worked for 40 years at a company, the government didn't create that job. The private sector does. And how does the private sector create the job? It's not some magical formula. It's pretty straightforward. Someone has access to money. They borrowed it. Someone lent it to, someone lent it to them. Someone invested it through them. They saved it. They maxed out their credit card. They took their life savings. Whatever it may be, someone got a hold of some money and they said, with this money, instead of buying bars of gold or putting it in a coffee can or leaving it in the bank, with this money, I'm going to start a business. And the business works. And then they take the money they make from the business and say, I believe so much in this business, I'm going to grow it. And so they start businesses, they grow businesses, they hire people. That's what grows the economy. And what is our job in government? To make America the easiest place in the world for people to do that. That's our job. And so when I'm president, what I'm going to do is support policies that make it easier for the private sector to create jobs. That's why I have a serious plan to fix our tax code. It's a disaster. It's a mess. You go on my website, you will see it. It's not talking points. It's a real plan. That's why I have a real plan to roll back federal regulations. Federal regulations kill jobs. Every penny you have to spend in complying with regulations is a penny you can't spend to hire someone new. That's why I have a real plan to balance our budget. That's why I have a real plan, by the way, to save Social Security and Medicare. And we talked about this at the debate the other day. My mom is on Social Security and Medicare. So I've always told everyone, it's very simple. If it's bad for my mom, I'm against it, whatever the change is. And here's the great news. I don't have to do any, we don't have to make any changes to my mom's Social Security or Medicare. In fact, anyone who's 55 years of age or older, nothing has to change other than to make it better. But I want to be honest with people. We have to stop lying to 45-year-olds like myself. My Social Security is not going to look the same as